In the heart of the galaxy, where species from every corner of the universe gathered, stood the infamous Galactic Arena. It was a place of brutal combat, where the strongest and fiercest from countless planets clashed for glory. But for all its history of bloodshed, there was one universal truth that echoed through its steel halls: humans were considered a joke. Every race, whether the towering Bractor with their 6 arms, or the venomous Nyx with their paralyzing stingers, mocked humans. Known for their frail bodies and lack of natural weaponry, humans had earned their reputation as spectators, not fighters. The arena roared with laughter each time a human dared step into the ring. None had ever left victorious, until one day, everything changed. A lone figure entered the arena. His name was Jonas Kane, a soldier from Earth with a reputation not for strength, but for tenacity. He had seen his comrades fall and heard the ridicule of humans from all sides. But unlike those before him, he wasn't here for fame or fortune. He was here to prove something, not to the galaxy, but to himself. The crowd jeered as he approached the ring, his thin frame dwarfed by the massive beasts he'd soon face. The announcer, a slithering creature with too many eyes, cackled as he introduced Jonas. Another human, ready for the slaughter. What a waste of a fight. The crowd's laughter was deafening, a symphony of mockery that rattled the walls. Jonas stepped into the arena, his heart steady. He had no illusions of an easy win. He knew what he was up against. His first opponent, a Groll, stood across the ring, an 8-foot-tall creature made of muscle and rage, its skin as hard as rock. The Groll roared, shaking the ground as it charged. But Jonas didn't flinch. In a flash, the Groll lunged, its fists like hammers crashing down. Jonas sidestepped with precision, his movements fluid and calculated. He wasn't stronger, but he was faster. Years of training on Earth had honed his agility, and he used every ounce of it now. The crowd grew quiet as Jonas dodged blow after blow, striking back with quick, precise punches. The Groll's hulking form began to falter, its energy draining as it struggled to keep up. And then, in a blur of motion, Jonas made his move. With a swift uppercut, he struck the Groll's jaw, sending the massive creature crashing to the ground. Silence filled the arena. The crowd, once mocking, was now stunned. A human had defeated a Groll, a feat that seemed impossible just moments ago. Jonas stood over his fallen opponent, breathing heavily but alive. The announcer, struggling to process what had just happened, finally stammered, "Winner, Jonas Kane, the human." But it wasn't over. One by one, more challengers entered the ring, each more terrifying than the last. A Zornax with razor-sharp claws, a venomous Nyx, even a towering Bractor fell to Jonas' unrelenting determination. He didn't overpower them, but he outsmarted them, using their size and arrogance against them. With each victory, the crowd's laughter faded, replaced by whispers of awe and disbelief. The other species watched in shock as the human, once the butt of every joke, stood undefeated in the Galactic Arena. By the end of the night, Jonas had faced 5 opponents and emerged victorious. He was battered and bruised, but standing. The once mocking crowd now roared with cheers, not of derision, but of respect. The galaxy had witnessed something unprecedented: a human warrior, proving that strength didn't always come from size or power, but from will, strategy, and heart. Jonas Kane left the arena that day not just as a victor, but as a symbol. He had shattered the perception of humanity as weak and inferior. And as he looked back at the arena, he knew that from now on, the galaxy would never again underestimate a human. The legend of Jonas Kane would spread across the stars, a tale of one human who fought back against the mocking jeers and triumphed. The Galactic Arena would never be the same. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info. Jonas Kane's triumph echoed throughout the galaxy, but his victory was just the beginning. Word of his success spread quickly, reaching every corner of the universe. On far-flung planets, warriors from dozens of species discussed the human who had not only survived but dominated the arena. For the first time, humans were no longer seen as mere spectators, they were feared as competitors. But with fame came new challenges. The Galactic Council, the ruling body of the arena, was not pleased. The arena had always been a stage for the most powerful species to demonstrate their superiority. An idea of a human champion upset the balance. The council, composed of the most influential leaders from across the galaxy, held an emergency meeting to discuss Jonas Kane. This human is disrupting the order of things, hissed Vorkov, a Nyx representative, his eyes glowing with malice. We cannot allow a creature so weak to continue winning. He is an anomaly, rumbled Thaler, a Bractor general, his voice deep and resonant. A human should not be capable of this. Yet, even as the council conspired, they knew the rules of the arena were sacred. Jonas had won fair and square. They couldn't remove him without breaking the very principles that held the Galactic spectators in thrall. So they came up with a plan. If Jonas couldn't be removed, he could be defeated publicly and brutally. They announced a new event, the Champions Gauntlet, a trial only the most elite warriors of the galaxy had ever faced. It was a grueling series of battles, where one fighter had to face 10 of the galaxy's deadliest combatants in succession, with no time for rest. No human had ever even dared to attempt it. Jonas, of course, accepted the challenge without hesitation. On the day of the gauntlet, the arena was packed with spectators from all over the galaxy, eagerly awaiting what they believed would be Jonas' defeat. Even on Earth, people tuned in, proud but fearful for their champion. For Jonas, this wasn't just about proving humanity's strength anymore, it was about survival, about showing the galaxy that humans could not be dismissed. The gauntlet began. His first opponent was a vicious crag, a beast twice the size of a Groll with forearms and bone-crushing strength. Jonas remembered the strategy that had won him his previous battles. Speed over power. He dodged its blows, using its own momentum against it, tiring the creature out until he struck a final blow, taking the giant down. 1 down, 9 to go. The second and third opponents fell with similar tactics. Jonas was faster, smarter, and more agile than the brute strength they relied on, but the battles were taking their toll. His muscles burned, his body ached, and he knew the worst was yet to come. As the fourth opponent entered, a dark-skinned creature from a distant planet with energy blades for arms, Jonas felt the weight of exhaustion settle in. This fight was brutal, and the blade-wielding alien was quick. Jonas took several hits, deep cuts that bled profusely, but he pushed through, finally using the alien's overconfidence to get the upper hand. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Jonas conquered yet another foe. Though the strain was beginning to show, his breath was ragged, and he was bleeding from multiple wounds, but the human warrior stood tall, refusing to back down. By the time Jonas faced his sixth opponent, a sleek, serpentine predator from the Nyx homeworld, his body was near its breaking point. The arena was deathly quiet. Every species, every warrior, every spectator held their breath, captivated by the human's resilience. This fight was different. The Nyx was faster than any opponent Jonas had faced, striking at him with lethal precision. For the first time, doubt flickered in his mind. Could he make it through? The Nyx struck Jonas across the chest with a venom-tipped claw, the poison burning like fire through his veins. He staggered back, his vision blurring. The arena roared, sensing the end. But Jonas refused to fall, digging deep into reserves of strength he didn't even know he had. He summoned every ounce of his willpower, his mind, clearer than it had ever been, focused on one thing: survival. With a quick, desperate move, he grabbed a fallen blade from a previous opponent and, in a last-ditch effort, swung it upward, catching the Nyx under its jaw. The creature fell, and the crowd gasped. Jonas collapsed to one knee, his body broken but his spirit unyielding. The arena was silent, shocked by the humans' perseverance, but there were still 4 opponents left. The Galactic Council watched from their high seats, furious. This wasn't supposed to happen. Jonas should have been dead by now, but he kept going. They had underestimated him once again. But Jonas wasn't finished. In the final moments of the gauntlet, as Jonas faced his last opponent, a champion from the Council's own elite guard, a monstrous warrior named Zorath, something extraordinary happened. As Zorath charged, ready to deliver the final blow, Jonas found strength in his pain. He dodged at the last second, sweeping Zorath's legs out from under him. In one fluid motion, Jonas struck with a force that belied his battered body, knocking Zorath to the ground. The arena erupted. Against all odds, Jonas Kane had completed the gauntlet. A human had defied the galaxy's expectations and emerged as the champion of the Galactic arena. The once mocking crowds now cheered his name, their respect earned through blood and sweat. Jonas had done more than just win battles. He had shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their physical power, but in their heart, resilience, and unyielding will. The Galactic Council, forced to watch the humans' victory, knew they could no longer ignore Jonas Canair the humans. A new era had begun, one where humans were no longer the underdogs of the galaxy, but contenders. Jonas Kane's triumph in the galactic arena was just the spark that ignited a fire across the galaxy. The story of the human who survived the gauntlet spread like wildfire. In bars on distant planets, holographic news screens played replays of his fights, showing him taking down one monstrous opponent after another. His name became a rallying cry for the underdogs of the universe, a symbol of defiance against insurmountable odds. But while Jonas returned to his quiet life on Earth, the Galactic Council had no intention of letting his victory stand uncontested. Behind closed doors, they plotted a way to restore the order that had been shattered by his success. If they couldn't defeat Jonas in the arena, they would break him another way. Weeks passed, and the galaxy's attention began to shift. Other warriors took the stage, trying to replicate Jonas' feat, but none could. However, in a dark, forgotten corner of the universe, an ancient threat stood. The Council, desperate to regain control, had reached out to a species that had been banished long ago, the Zarketh. The Zarketh were more than just warriors, they were conquerors, a race so powerful that their very presence had been outlawed from the arena for centuries. Their leader, General Azrak, was a figure of legend, known for his ruthless tactics and insatiable hunger for domination. He had never been defeated, and the Council knew that if anyone could end Jonas Kane's reign, it was him. The Council's message was simple: return to the arena, defeat the human, and reclaim the galaxy's balance. Azrak accepted. The day of the rematch was set. The galactic arena, usually filled with boisterous spectators, was now a sea of tense silence. Word had spread that the Zarketh were returning, and fear rippled through the crowd. Even the bravest species hesitated to speak the Zarketh's name aloud, but the promise of a fight between Jonas and Azrak drew billions of viewers across the galaxy. This wasn't just a battle, it was a reckoning. Jonas arrived at the arena, unaware of the plot against him. He had been training, honing his skills in anticipation of a new challenge, but when he entered the ring and saw his opponent, he knew something was different. Azrak towered over him, his presence like a living shadow. The air seemed to hum with a dark energy, and the crowd, usually cheering, was deathly quiet. Human, Azrak's voice rumbled, deep and menacing, I will show you the true meaning of power. Jonas didn't respond. He knew this fight would be unlike any he'd faced before, but fear wasn't part of his nature. He had been underestimated his entire life, and this would be no different. The battle began with a fury. Azrak's speed and strength were unlike anything Jonas had encountered. His strikes were precise, devastating, and relentless. Within moments, Jonas was on the defensive, barely able to dodge the crushing blows. Each hit he took felt like a planet crashing down on him. Blood dripped from his wounds, then his vision blurred. But Jonas fought on. He knew he couldn't match Azrak's strength head-on. Instead, he relied on his agility, using the arena's terrain to his advantage. He ducked and weaved, striking when he saw an opening. Though each hit seemed to bounce off Azrak's impenetrable armor, the crowd watched in stunned silence, many believing this would be the end of the human champion. Minutes turned into hours, and still, the fight raged on. Azrak began to grow frustrated. No one had ever lasted this long against him, but Jonas, battered and bruised, refused to fall. He had faced monsters before, this was just another. His endurance, his sheer willpower, was his greatest weapon. Then, in a moment that would be spoken of in hushed tones for generations, Jonas saw his chance. Azrak, confident in his invincibility, overextended on a strike, leaving his core exposed for just a fraction of a second. Jonas, with lightning reflexes, seized the opportunity. He lunged forward, driving a makeshift spear crafted from a shattered piece of the arena into the one vulnerable spot in Azrak's armor. The arena gasped. Azrak staggered back, disbelief in his eyes. Jonas, panting, bleeding, but unbroken, stood over the fallen conqueror. The silence in the arena was deafening. As Rak, a creature of legend, the undefeated warlord, had fallen, the crowd erupted into chaos, cheers mixing with disbelief as they realized what had happened. The Galactic Council, watching from their lofty perch, was stunned. Their plan had failed. Not only had Jonas survived, but he had defeated their chosen champion. Jonas, barely able to stand, raised his fist in victory. He hadn't just won a battle, he had cemented humanity's place among the stars. No longer would humans be seen as weak, as a species to be mocked. They had faced the galaxy's worst and emerged victorious. The Zarketh retreated back into the darkness, their leader defeated and their legacy shattered. The Galactic Council, now powerless to stop the tide Jonas had unleashed, begrudgingly acknowledged his place in the annals of history. From that day forward, the Galactic Arena was no longer just a place of sport. It became a symbol of hope, of defiance, of the belief that even the smallest, most underestimated beings could change the course of history. And Jonas Kane, the human who fought back, became a legend. His name would be spoken across the galaxy for centuries to come, a reminder that strength wasn't just about power or size, it was about heart, resilience, and the unwavering will to never give up, no matter the odds. Jonas Kane's victory over Azrak was nothing short of mythic, but the ramifications of his success went far beyond the galactic arena. His triumph reverberated across the galaxy, sparking a shift in how humans were perceived. Once laughed at, they were now respected and feared. On distant planets, new human fighters began emerging. Inspired by Jonas' example, small colonies on far-flung moons started preparing for the galactic arena, sending their brightest and most determined warriors to compete. Humans were no longer outsiders, they were contenders, and their newfound reputation as unpredictable, tenacious fighters made them a force to be reckoned with. But for Jonas, the victory came with a price. His body, already pushed beyond its limits, was struggling to heal from the wounds he sustained in his battle with Azrak. Doctors from across the galaxy, even some from rival species, offered their expertise, but no amount of advanced medicine could erase the damage he had endured. Jonas had given everything in that fight, and while his spirit was unbroken, his body had taken too much punishment. Still, Jonas refused to rest. He continued to train, even as his muscles screamed in protest. The galaxy saw him as a hero, but Jonas knew that somewhere, lurking in the shadows, the Galactic Council was still plotting. They wouldn't let a human remain the champion for long. Jonas wasn't just fighting for himself anymore, was fighting for humanity's future. And so, the galaxy waited. Rumors of Jonas' deteriorating health spread, and whispers of new challengers reached his ears. The Galactic Council, humiliated but not defeated, was preparing something in secret. They had learned from their mistake with Azrak and knew that brute strength alone wouldn't be enough to topple Jonas. This time, they sought something more sinister, something that would not only defeat Jonas, but break the very spirit of humanity. The Council unveiled their next move, the Intergalactic Tournament of Champions. Unlike any contest before, this event would pit not only the most fearsome individual warriors against one another but entire species. The stakes were higher than ever. The winner wouldn't just claim personal glory, they would dictate the future of galactic politics and establish dominance for their entire race. When the announcement reached Earth, humanity stood on edge. Jonas Kane had carried their hopes on his shoulders for years, but now, the tournament threatened to challenge more than just his strength. If he lost, humanity's hard-won respect could be shattered in an instant. Jonas, weakened but undeterred, knew what he had to do. He would fight, not because he wanted to, but because humanity needed him to. As the tournament drew near, the galactic arena became a crucible of anticipation. Representatives from every major race arrived in droves, bringing their finest warriors and placing their faith in the champions they had chosen. But behind the spectacle of the tournament, darker forces were at work. The Galactic Council had woven secret alliances, setting traps that would ensure Jonas Kane never left the arena alive. The day of the tournament arrived. Jonas, clad in a simple battle suit, stepped into the arena, his body aching from past battles but his mind sharper than ever. Around him, towering gladiators from distant worlds adorned in exotic armors, others bristling with weapons that hummed with energy stood ready for war. The first battle was announced. Jonas would face the Drakyar, a race of reptilian warriors known for their savage combat tactics and brutal efficiency. The day of the tournament arrived. Jonas, clad in a simple battle suit, stepped into the arena, his body aching from past battles but his mind sharper than ever. Around him, towering gladiators from distant worlds adorned in exotic armors, others bristling with weapons that hummed with energy stood ready for war. The first battle was announced. Jonas would face the Drakyar, a race of reptilian warriors known for their savage combat tactics and brutal efficiency. Their champion, Yurkov, had never been defeated, and his hulking form, covered in jagged scales, seemed impervious to pain, but Jonas had learned it long ago that size wasn't everything. The battle began with a roar. Yurkov lunged at Jonas, his claws extended and eyes glowing with murderous intent. Jonas moved quickly, his body reacting out of instinct. Each blow he dodged was a reminder of his humanity, fragile but nimble, weak but clever. The Drakyar swam with wild, ferocious strength, but Jonas weaved between the attacks, waiting for his opening. Finally, it came, as Yurkov overextended in a downward strike. Jonas ducked low and struck with the speed of lightning, delivering a precise blow to the warrior's vulnerable underbelly. The crowd gasped as Yurkov fell, stunned by the human speed and skill. Jonas hadn't relied on brute strength, had outsmarted the beast. But there was no time for celebration. The tournament was far from over. One by one, champions from across the galaxy entered the ring, each more formidable than the last. Jonas fought relentlessly, his movements growing more fluid with each battle. His opponents were faster, stronger, and in some cases nearly invincible, but Jonas used every ounce of his experience to outmaneuver them, exploiting weaknesses no one else could see. As the tournament wore on, it became clear that Jonas wasn't just fighting against other warriors, was fighting against time. His injuries were catching up to him, and every movement came with pain. The crowd, once roaring in excitement, began to murmur in concern as they saw the toll the battles were taking on him. But Jonas, even as his body faltered, fought with the same fire that had carried him through his previous battles. He refused to give in. Then came the final battle moment the Galactic Council had been waiting for. Jonas' final opponent was unlike any he had faced before. It was a creation of the Council itself, a hybrid monstrosity forged from the DNA of the galaxy's most dangerous species. This creature, an amalgamation of the deadliest traits from countless races, was designed for one purpose: to kill Jonas Kane. It was their ultimate weapon, their final gamble to erase the stain of human victory once and for all. The arena fell silent as the monstrosity emerged. Its grotesque form shifted and rippled with raw power, claws gleaming and muscles bulging under its hide. The crowd held its breath as the two opponents stood across from one another: Jonas, the battered human champion, and the beast, the Council's last hope. The battle that followed was nothing short of legendary. The creature was relentless, attacking with inhuman speed and precision. Every move Jonas made was met with a counterattack that seemed impossibly fast. Blood streamed from his wounds, his vision blurred, but still, he fought on. In the final moments of the battle, when it seemed as if the Council's creation would crush Jonas under its enormous weight, the human warrior did the unthinkable. With a move so daring it left even the most seasoned warriors stunned. Jonas leaped onto the creature's back, driving a shard of broken armor into its neck. The beast roared in agony, thrashing wildly, but Jonas held firm, twisting the shard deeper until, finally, the monstrosity collapsed in a heap. The crowd erupted into chaos. Jonas Kane, the human who was once laughed at, had not only survived the tournament but emerged victorious. The Galactic Council's plans had failed, and their ultimate weapon lay defeated at Jonas' feet. The galaxy would never forget this day. Jonas, standing amidst the wreckage of his final opponent, raised his fist one last time. His body was broken, but his spirit was unshaken. The galactic arena was silent as the realization dawned on all present. Humanity, once dismissed as weak and inconsequential, had proved to be among the strongest and most resilient species in the galaxy. And Jonas Kane, the unyielding human warrior, had become a legend that would live on for eons. This time, There would be no mocking, only respect.